The old van rumbled to a stop. I looked out. Key Point Health Services. The sign was neat. The building looked clean. A woman came out smiling. She said this was a place of healing, a place of support. I carried my small bag. It held everything I owned. I needed help. I believed her words. I wanted to believe them so much. This was supposed to be a new start for me, a safe harbor from the storms I'd faced. Inside, the air was sterile. It smelled of disinfectant and something else. The corridors were long. The doors were mostly closed. People shuffled by. Their eyes rarely met mine. I was shown to a small room. It had a bed, a chair, a tiny window. "You'll be comfortable here," the smiling woman said. But comfort felt far away already. They explained the rules, many rules. They spoke of community. They spoke of care. They mentioned payments. My disability check. The first month came. My social security income arrived, or rather it went directly to Key Point. I never saw the check. I never touched the money. They told me this was standard procedure. It paid for my room. It paid for my food. It paid for the services they provided. All of it. Every single cent of my government assistance. The money meant to give me a basic standard of living. The money that was, by law, mine. I asked for a statement. I wanted to see the breakdown. How much for rent? How much for meals? How much for the supposed therapy sessions? The answers were vague. They showed me a general ledger. It listed cost of care, a single large number. It consumed my entire income. And then some, they implied. Leaving me with nothing. Absolutely nothing to call my own. Except for a tiny, almost insulting weekly allowance. This allowance, they explained, was for personal needs. $11. Key Point Health Services calls itself a non-profit. We hear this term often. It suggests charity. It suggests a mission beyond money. It suggests that all funds go back into helping people, not into making owners rich, not into building an empire. That is the promise of a non-profit. A promise of altruism. A promise of putting human needs above financial gain. This is what they project to the world, to the government, to us. But then we see things that make us question. We hear whispers of new properties. Key Point is buying another building, a bigger one this time. They are expanding their reach, more facilities, more land, more assets under their name. The news sometimes appears in local papers. Key Point Health Services announces new wing or local non-profit acquires downtown property. It sounds like success. When you start asking specific questions, the walls go up. You want to understand where your money goes. You want to see detailed expenses, not just a single line item called program services. You want transparency. It is your money, after all. Your social security, your disability benefits. You have a right to know. But getting clear answers from Key Point Health Services is like navigating a maze, a labyrinth designed to confuse, designed to deter. I tried, many times. I asked for itemized bills. I asked how they calculated the cost of my care. I asked about administrative overheads. The responses were always polite, always evasive. These matters are complex, they would say. $11. Let that number sink in. $11 a week. This is what Key Point Health Services deems sufficient for personal needs. For everything that makes you feel like an individual. Not just an inmate, not just a patient, but a person with small wants, with basic necessities, with a desire for a tiny piece of autonomy in a life largely controlled by others. This is the sum they allocate from our own money. Try to imagine your week on $11. A bar of soap, toothpaste, shampoo, deodorant. These are not luxuries. These are essentials for hygiene, for self-respect. A new toothbrush when the old one is frayed. A comb. Every year there is talk of COLA, the cost of living adjustment. The Social Security Administration announces it. It's supposed to help, to ensure that benefits keep pace with rising prices. Inflation affects everyone, even those in assisted living. The cost of basic goods goes up. So our SSI checks increase slightly. A small acknowledgement from the government that we need a little more to get by. A lifeline adjusted for the rising tide of expenses. But here at Key Point, that COLA increase is a mirage. It appears on paper. Our SSI income officially goes up by a few percentage points. We see the notification letters. We know we are entitled to more. Yet, our personal needs allowance, it rarely budges. Sometimes it stays exactly the same. $11. Other times it might go up by a quarter, or 50 cents. A cruel joke, an insult added to injury. While our total contribution to them increases. Where does that extra cola money go? Straight into Keypoint's coffers. They absorb it. They call it increased cost of care. Keypoint Health Services justifies taking our entire SSI by citing the cost of care. They claim that providing us with a room, meals and support services is expensive, very expensive. So expensive that it consumes every dollar we receive, and sometimes they suggest even more. We are led to believe we are a significant financial burden, that their non-profit mission is a struggle, a constant battle against rising operational costs. This is the narrative they carefully construct. But what is the quality of this care we receive? The meals are often basic, repetitive, sometimes lacking in fresh ingredients. The activities can be infrequent or poorly organized. The support services sometimes feel more like supervision than genuine therapeutic engagement. When you compare the total sum of money they receive from all residents, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions annually, with the tangible benefits we experience, questions arise. You think you are alone in your frustration, in your quiet anger. But then you start to listen. You hear the whispers, in the dining hall, in the laundry room, in the brief moments of conversation in the hallways. Other residents feel it too. The same pinch, the same questions, the same sense of powerlessness. They talk about the $11. They talk about the cola that never arrives. They talk about the ever-expanding Keypoint empire. Mary down the hall needed new glasses. Her allowance wouldn't cover it for months. She squinted at the television, her face etched with worry. John, who loves to read, can't afford a new book. He rereads the same worn paperbacks from the small, dusty shelf in the common room. Sarah tried to save for a bus ticket to visit her sister. After 3 months, she still didn't have enough. These are not isolated incidents. They are common stories, shared realities. There is fear, of course, fear of speaking out too loudly, fear of repercussions. This is not just about numbers. It is not just about dollars and cents. It is about human dignity. It is about the value we place on vulnerable lives. Keypoint Health Services and organizations like it operate under a veil, often a veil of non-profit status, a veil of providing essential care. But we have the right to look behind that veil. We have the right to ask hard questions. We have the right to demand answers, and we must exercise that right. If you are a resident or a family member of a resident, do not accept vague explanations. Do not be intimidated by complex financial reports or the lack thereof. Ask for clarity. Ask for accountability. How is the money being spent? Why is the personal needs allowance so low? Why are COLA increases not passed on? These are not unreasonable questions. They are fundamental questions of fairness and transparency. Your voice matters. Your concerns are valid. We must challenge the narrative that these institutions are struggling charities if their actions suggest otherwise. We must scrutinize their expansion, their property acquisitions, their executive salaries, all while residents live on the barest minimum. The disparity must be exposed. The light of public awareness needs to shine on these practices. Community oversight groups, advocates, and investigative journalists have a role to play.